Hi, this is CJ with CompRCC.com, and in this series of videos I'm going to be assembling the 3Racing Sakura Ultimate Touring Car. In this video I'm going to open bag number 2 and start putting together the chassis and the suspension. This little item here actually comes pre-assembled. On the supplemental page it shows the exploded view, but the pinion gear, or excuse me, spur gear is already assembled with the bearings and E-clips. But I'm going to go ahead and open this little guy up, and I may even take it partially or completely apart. I want to make sure these bearings get lubed properly. Soak them in a little bit of oil. And I'm going to leave those to soak. And in box number 2, we have the suspension mounts, front and rear arms, and all the little push rods. So go ahead and put these little items over here in this container, because I need something to, there's a lot of little screws and pieces of hardware in here, and I don't want any of them to get lost. And again, they've done a very nice job of packaging everything. Just checking out these ball studs to see if I want to do any extra polishing on them, but they look like they're very smooth already. So I think those can go as is. Now, having read the directions earlier, I noticed that there's these little metal tabs here. It's a very thin little piece of metal. See if I can focus on that. And these get glued onto these little cutout places on the frame. These are where the ride height screws are going to bottom out against. So that's going to be the first thing that I do. The directions call for gluing these little shims to the carbon chassis using CA glue. And I'm going to use this is actually a J Concepts product, and it's a tire glue, but it is, you know, a CA glue. All CA glues are, you know, more or less the same. It's the viscosity, how thick it is, and how quickly it dries. And I want to use a slower glue because I don't want them to be locked in place permanently the minute they touch down. I want to have the chance to seat them into place and not make sure that they're in properly. And there we go. So now that those are in place, before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and trim these arms off of the tree. Everything is very nicely molded. Not a lot of molding flash. I will take just a little bit of molding flash you can feel with your fingernails. I'm going to take a little bit of that 600 grit sandpaper and just lightly polish the outsides of these holes so all the parts made up nice and smoothly. You don't want that little bit of flash there to be creating a binding point. You don't have to do it all the way down the arms, just where they're going to come into contact with other pieces at the pivots. Doesn't take very much effort, and you don't want to get any extra material removed. Just that little bit of flashing. Check the insides as well. If they're clean, don't have to do anything to them. There's actually very little on these. They're definitely molded well. And the parts are all labeled to differentiate left from right. Okay, now I am going to need to go into bag number 4 and get the belt to the front. That, of course, is the longer of the two. Here are the aluminum steering knuckles. Everything is very well marked. Rear plus 0 degrees, front plus 0 degrees, rear left and right, again 0 degrees, and this is the front, plus 0 degrees. Interesting little touch on these. You can see these aluminum has these little steel pins that are pushed in, and those go into holes that are drilled into the chassis to help these parts orient properly. Nice little touch that they've added in there. So, checking the directions to make sure the front is, because this is our front end here. You can tell by the open keyhole slot here versus the one that's got this little crossbar on it. Just going to start these lightly by hand. And this looks like a good spot to use a little bit of blue Loctite. I've just gotten those first two finger tight, and I'm going to do the same with these until all 4 are seated in the countersunk holes. And I'm going to slowly tighten them down. And there we go. And because of the Loctite, I don't have to try crazy hard to torque those down. Just get them, you know, nice and reasonably tight, and the Loctite will do the rest. And there's nothing loose there, obviously, but you know, even though it's you know, a metal screw going into a piece of metal, you don't want to crank down on it super hard. And now for more of that same size screw. You know, checking the orientation, right versus left. It's very nice that they mark them so well. For those of you who don't know, never use red Loctite. This is blue Loctite, even though they put it in a red tube. Obviously it's blue by the color when it comes out. Red Loctite, and you may never get that screw back out again. Blue Loctite, and you do not have to worry about it trying to back out on you. And so we have this supplemental page added in here. This portion is basically what was at the top of the other one. And then there's the exploded view of this right here. It's been sitting a little while. And it looks like some oil has passed through there. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little more. Now I need to put in the drop screws. And we're doing the front arms. And since they don't have left and right here, I want to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. These parts appear to be almost symmetrical, as if there is no left versus right. So they just need to be oriented, facing in the right direction. And they say the starting position for these screws is 1.5 millimeter. This is where a digital caliper would come in handy. My last one broke, so I am using my fallback. It's an inexpensive mechanical one, but it does work. So the next step is to mount the front arms, and I'm going to need a pair of these little plastic spacers. It's like a little ball stud. Let me just check these rods, see if they're all the same length, and they are, so front is rear and rear is front. This is a nice little bonus that all the spacers seem to be aluminum, which is nice. They added that little bit of extra quality there. One thing I noticed since I put these on, everything it's very smooth. That's really nice. That no additional reaming is going to need to be done. Okay, and we have suspension. I go ahead and put the stop screws on the rear. And this is marked as left, so that is up. Now I do have a powered screwdriver, but I'm not going to use it, not during the assembly of this the first time. I might use it to disassemble this at some point when I'm doing repairs or something, but even with the clutch, I just don't want to use a powered screwdriver on something that's this delicate. Now we take our rear suspension block and we do exactly the same thing we did up front. These little ball studs and spacers. And again, as you can see, very smooth. No need to do any reaming. And just in case you ever do come across a kit where you need to do that to it, you've got a ready to run and you're having some suspension issues, or you're building a kit and things aren't as loose as you want them to be. There's several manufacturers that make reamers in various sizes. I was looking at one just last night online, and for about $18 it was a 3-pack in the common sizes that are used for these hinge pins and spindles. There we go. So again, there's that little set of pins. As you can see, that took me a second to get it perfectly lined up, and then it drops right in. But that's exactly the kind of thing that makes this a nice kit, that little attention to detail that they've added. That is a little tight there. So I disassembled the rear and took a little bit of that 600 grit fine sandpaper and gave the ends of these A-arms a little love, and now we've got everything moving the way we want it to. So everything is nice and freed up. So now I will be moving on to the next step.